The following conversations are taken from our channel membership exclusive weekly live show that we do on Saturdays from 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time called Members Talk Live. Find out how you can become a member and appear on the show. All of the information is down in the description below, as well as all the links to the channels of today's guests. Check them out, and I hope to talk with you very soon. And today we are going to be talking about why we love movies, part two. We got to do this last episode with DJ, had a great conversation with him, but we've got more members to talk with me today as well. And I want to hear all their stories, why they love movies, who got them into movies, why they're talking about movies on YouTube today. So let's not waste any time. Let's get some members up in here, and let's start with Frank.
How's it going?
Hey, man, what's going on?
Good, dude. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, man. So, movies. I mean, we obviously love them. We talk about them all the time on the internet. So, I just want to kind of like dive into your journey with movies. As weird as that sounds to some people, like it is a journey that you go on developing your love for movies. So, let's just go back, man. Let's go back to your origin story. Do you remember the first movie you ever watched or the first person that ever exposed you to a movie and how that feeling was for you?
Oh man. You know, I started off wondering about that these past couple of weeks because I was looking back into the very actual first movie that I've ever watched, like ever, and I think I was like 4 or 5 years old at the time. And the shocking part about it was a horror sci-fi movie.
Oh wow, what was it?
Yeah, it was Species. It was that movie, and when and it was just driving me insane. Prior to rewatching that after 25 plus years, I'm 32, and and so I was looking up on Google. I was like trying to recall like scenes from that movie because I wanted to rewatch that. And as I was trying to recall, like it was one of those movies where they were playing over and over back then when pay-per-view was affordable and when we had just the basic antenna cable, all of that. Um, but one of those channels were on. They were replaying the movies that were available to see on demand, and I was this kid, hyperactive, just playing and watching TV back and forth. That's how I was occupied. I mean, that was like the way of like a little kid with his cell phone, basically, or a tablet or whatever, which was safer, I guess. But anyways, I remember it was something that it didn't scare me as a kid. Like I was exposed to a horror movie at the same time, and what was so intriguing to me, it's like, oh wait, like what is this? When we're exposed to television, you you always kind of come to like the insane conclusion, and I'm like, did this really happen? Like, did worms come out of that lady's body or something?
So for those who don't know, can you briefly tell us what Species is about?
Okay, yeah, sure. So Species is it's a sci-fi horror movie, and Alfred Molina also stars in it as a young self, which I didn't know up until I saw it a few weeks ago. It's it's this uh, it's a little difficult to explain, uh, but you have this alien who is in the form of this young white girl who escapes from a lab, and all the main characters, the lead characters, they're after her, uh, and her purpose is to reproduce, so to find a male counterpart human to mate with them and produce her offsprings. Like that's her purpose. Yeah.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah.
So what part of this movie really intrigued you as a 4-year-old kid?
Oh man, the scene, the two scenes actually. Number one is the one that I was talking about, where she starts off as this as a young teenage blonde girl, uh, who was like in a metamorphosis stage where all these weird worm-like tentacles was like surrounding her and encased her in a cocoon, and she came out as a fully grown adult. So that's the first scene. And the second scene was the last one. The last one, I had to use the description to find it on Google because I didn't know what the title was a couple of weeks ago when I rewatched it. And so I went to Google and I'm like, okay, scene with the little kid who eats a rat with his long tongue. It's so random, I know. And I'm like, okay, search. And right there on the Wikipedia page, on its page, was species. And I'm like, let me read the synopsis for this one. And I read the synopsis, or read the final part of it, and I'm like, this is it. And here's also the scene where these two couples are, um, in a jacuzzi, and the guy gets killed by this girl when she starts transforming into this horrible being. So yeah, it was insane. But yeah, that was my first ever exposure to what movie even is. And I don't know, I think for me it feels like I I just continue to see more of it. I mean, it was intriguing. I think the sci-fi piece of it was also kind of what woke my geeky side of it, I guess.
Right.
Um, yeah, and it just
So from that point on, where it was like sci-fi and horror kind of like your main thing, or did you have like a normal childhood where you watched like the Disney classics and all that kind of stuff as well?
Oh yeah, no, I have. I'll absolutely cannot forget that because Lion King was my very first Disney movie that I've ever
Yeah.
watched when it came out on VHS, and it was my dad who actually got it for me. So I've watched that, but God knows how many times, and I loved it. It became my all-time favorite Disney movie, and after that, I remember watching the Aristocats, which also Disney animated, and the mini adventures of Winnie the Pooh, and there was Bambi also. There was also yeah, the Disney geekness kind of conceived through those initial VHS that I used to own.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of VHSs growing up as a kid? Because I had like the VHSs, like I had kid VHSs that my parents would buy for me. Like I don't remember ever getting one myself. Like they just kind of showed up, and what you had is what you had.
Yeah.
And then my like parents had their own VHSs as well. That was kind of like the adult movies. And every once in a
Mm.
while, they would let me watch one, but mostly I had my kid stash to dive into. Did you have a lot of movies around you in your house when you were growing up?
Yes, we did. We did, and my situation was like yours, where it was divided. That I had my own stash of VHS. Uh, I don't know if you remember, they were also stacked. The VHS were stacked in like these plastic cover, as opposed to like a cardboard slide in, slide out.
Like a clamshell.
Right, exactly. There
Yes,
you go.
yeah, I had a lot
Yeah.
of those, especially the Disney movies.
Yes, yes. They were famous just for those, that style. And so the adult sides, I mean, the adult movies were were the majority of my uncles, because he was big into movies, and I think he was the one who was paying for the pay-per-view package that our cable service uh had. So that's in theory. So
Yeah,
yeah, and so um yeah, that's how it basically was, as far as my movie exposure.
perfect. So
Batman,
like,
yeah,
so
Batman
as
Forever was also in
oh,
that too.
Batman Forever.
Yes.
Nice, man. Yeah, I watched that a lot as a kid too. Batman 1989 was a little bit too scary for me as a kid. I was not like you, man. Species would have like destroyed my life. I was a terrified kid of like the Green Goblin from Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man is like that was like the fuel for my nightmares for many
Mhm.
many years. As like I think I saw that for the first time when I was like 3 or 4 years old. So that carried on for a long time.
Gotcha.
But so as a kid, movies are kind of like really pretty images on screen. If you're like me, you believe that someone's behind the TV, you're wondering how they got in there, all that kind of stuff. We're not fully grasping how movies are made, what movies are. Do you remember when that started to change for you? What age that started to change for you at, where you started to get into the filmmaking side of movies? And what about that really intrigued you?
Yeah, that came a little bit later afterwards. I think I would say that the first time I wanted to immerse myself in the filmmaking, aesthetic of it, the arts of it, we would say. It was when I first saw Lord of the Rings: Return of the King in theaters. Yeah.
Oof, that must have been awesome, dude. I missed out on those in theaters, but I can't even imagine what that must have been like.
It was my I would say that it was definitely my first cinematic experience with audience, and like at an individual level, just with it, with everybody else, with amazing visuals and sound and dialogues and characters and everything that was going on in the movie.
How old were
uh
you? Do you remember your age?
I was so Yeah, I was 12 years old when it premiered in theaters. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, because it was 2003 and so on. So, um, yeah, I think after that, I started to really consider a lot as far as the behind the scenes of it all, and becoming familiar with, more directors. And I think the actors was more appealing to me as far as the creative process
Yeah.
that I wanted to know more about. Um, and then it wasn't, and then a little bit later, like around now, that's when I started to take it like really serious as far as how screenwriting should go, how VFX should go. Uh, for the past 5 to, I don't know, 7 years, there's been so much talk about like how CGI has changed, and so yeah, that that's all pretty much how it came together.
Yeah. So around that time, like 12, you're going into your teen years. That's like the perfect time also probably to see Lord of the Rings like that in theaters. Like you're actually able to you're at the age where you're starting to comprehend what's happening on screen and
Mhm.
following the story and everything. And so growing up, did you have like a lot of friends that were also into movies? Was it a solo journey for you mostly? Like
Mostly, yeah, mostly solo, but I remember in middle school I had this one friend, very close friend, who I lost touch with, but we were both into horror movies, and he was a huge Michael Myers fan. So he would always bring that up. We would always talk about like the classic slasher films. Also, around that time, I remember I was exposed to the slasher fandom, as far as 80s horror movies and a bit of 90s horror movies as well. So yeah, there was that enjoyment, and I would say, yeah, just a few conversations that I've had during high school as well. So yeah.
awesome. So you said that you were mostly solo on the journey. You had one friend that really liked horror. So when did it go from just watching movies to like talking about movies? What was your outlet for talking about movies? Because I know for me, my outlet for starting to talk about movies was people on YouTube who talked about movies. I had these thoughts about movies that I couldn't fully grasp or articulate myself, but people
Mm.
on YouTube who I would watch, they started articulating and saying things for me that I was feeling, that I was thinking, and it really helped me develop my language for when I talked about movies. So what was that for you?
Yeah, that started up around I would say four years ago now. And it's funny because that's when I was getting into the Marvel Cinematic Universe around that time. So I started after starting after watching those, I watched other projects, and I started to really, I would say, I started to take it serious as I was talking to my colleagues, and some of my colleagues, especially one who's a huge geek as far as movies that I never knew about, and her and I have been talking about that ever since. We still do, and so uh, from there, ever since then, like I said, I've watched other projects, but projects that all these other actors that were in the MCU have also done these other these other projects, and I've worked with these other directors also. So, it kind of built itself up as far as my knowledge, where it still stands, and it continues to develop. Of film, just film and becoming a film enthusiasm, I would say, in an enthusiast. So that's the journey that kind of took off from there a couple years ago.
That's pretty cool. So you kind of credit the MCU for all that
For sure.
a little
Yeah, why
bit.
not? I'll do
Yeah, that's really. You
it.
know what? The Marvel Cinematic Universe has been the most influential movie series in my life as well. Like I saw the first Iron Man when I was 9 years old back in 2008. My dad took me, changed my life absolutely. So I
Wow.
think the big question then also, because we all know, who us on YouTube anyways, how hard it is to hit that record button, how hard it is to watch yourself back, how hard it is to first edit a video, and then how hard it is to put that video up for all to see. So what was your journey to talking about movies on YouTube? Why did you want to do it? Like
Hmm.
what was the influence on you to do it? And how long have you been doing it now?
Man. And I'm still, I mean, I would say I'm still like a bit of an infant. Well, I'm pretty much an infant still when it comes to the process and execution of these projects, these videos where I talk about and review movies, because it started off in the springtime, um, late March. I want to say late March. One of the reviewers who I'm subscribed to currently, John Flick, if
A
anyone's
flick
familiar with,
pick.
yes, him.
Love the
Eh,
flick. He is the reason I buy Blu-rays.
He
Because
really, oh yeah.
his Blu-ray pickups, man, they looked
Mhm.
like a blast. And especially when I was younger and I didn't have
Yes,
any money and I didn't have the means to go out
yeah.
by myself, I like lived through him. Like I watched him go to Walmart and buy all these
Yeah,
movies,
yeah,
and I was
yeah.
just like, oh, I want to do that so bad.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Believe it or not, I'm in the same boat as you were. Because ever since I started making reviews, I've been collecting Blu-rays also, which I'll be planning on doing just a recap of all the Blu-rays I've purchased for the year in 2023. So I can't wait for that. But
Nice.
but yeah, but I would say that his videos, actually one of his videos, just appeared on my feed out of nowhere. YouTube is like this in some ways as far as the algorithm, and so I saw it. He was reviewing. It was a short also, and he did a short on John Wick 4 when it came out around that time. Um, And after I saw it, and I saw him, and more videos of him just kept appearing, I'm like, uh, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do a review channel. Um, and here's a little surprise, but I've already had like this channel, my channel, um, set up with its own name, Optimistic Forever, because prior to even doing reviews, I've been making content, but content that were more based on like self-esteem and mental health. I mean, that's where the name Optimistic Forever
Oh,
comes
okay.
from. But one of the tricky challenges for me at the time when I wanted to get back into the grind of making videos was planning to change the title of the channel. And it was a tough challenge, and until I decided to, like, hold on, if I can keep it, like, it could still carry that philosophy for something, something specific, right? Like, it could be anything. So I thought about like how much now I enjoy watching movies, the way it's meant to be enjoyed, even if it's with people, without people, but with folks, even if it's folks you don't know.
Hmm.
um but still everybody becomes invested in stories, creative stories that you connect with, characters that you connect with, worlds that you have never seen before, um that just feels unique, and you wish you could live in that sort of world. um just don't live in a world where Saving Private Ryan was taking place, but um
That's our world, dude.
yeah, right. Only the best opening ever, right?
That's insane. Yeah.
So so yeah, it you can sort of see that perspective that there's something, even though it's not perfect, but you still enjoyed, you still feel satisfied, you already know what went on, and it's up to you to experience that again and again, and hopefully don't get tired of it. So that's why, that's the whole point about being excited and staying excited about something that you anticipate. And that's why I kept the channel's name Optimistic Forever. Yeah.
I love
So
that, man. That's awesome.
exactly. So that's my full testimony and why I love movies.
Well,
So
hallelujah, man. Hallelujah. I want to ask you one last question, and then we're gonna bring on Jonah from the Cosmic Broadcast. But I like this question. I think this is a fun question to throw at people, especially
mhm.
people in our space. What is the first movie that made you realize that movies can be bad?
A lot of viewers are going to agree with me 100%. And yeah, I might say that as a little bit boastful, but Dragon Ball Evolution.
Great pick.
Dragon Ball Evolution. And I think by saying that title, I don't have to explain myself,
No,
because if
you
you've seen
really
the
don't.
movie, yeah. So, oh man, yeah, it still hurts. Just you even bring it up, even thinking about it. So,
Oh man, I love that answer, man. So tell people again quickly where they can find you.
yeah, so everybody can find me on YouTube, Optimistic Forever, where I create TV shows and movie reviews as well. I will be posting my review of The Nun too, so look out for that.
Awesome, man. Well, you have a great rest of your weekend, man, and thank you for jumping on and thank you for talking with me for this, man.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
We'll talk to you again soon.
You too.
All right, and let's bring on Jonah. What's going on, man?
What's going on, Zach? How you doing?
I'm doing well. Your camera looks great, dude. Your audio sounds fantastic, crystal clear. Like it
Rebound
looks
season.
it looks amazing, dude. Awesome. Congrats. So similar kind of questions to you as well, man. Like, what was your first experience with movies? Who got you into movies? What's the first movie you watched? How far back does your memory go? What can you remember?
Yeah, sure thing. Because everybody jokes about that moment when you become 4 or when you're 4 or 5 years old, and then like your conscious kicks in. You're like, I'm eating a stick. What? Like this is this real life? What the heck? So everybody has that moment. Around that same age where all of a sudden you just become self-aware. But the person who got me into movies first of all is my dad, 100%. But it wasn't so much that he introduced me to movies. He introduced me to the idea of movies because he would tell me about all the movies he went to go see in the 70s and the 80s and just tell me all of these experiences of what the theaters looked like back then. And to kind of provide a different perspective, his what he got me into was the movie theater experience specifically. So
Mm.
that's what I wanted to cover. Was he told me about how it was just this magical place where it's this massive screen and soundproof rooms and the sound design and all that kind of stuff, and he was always telling me about that, and I was like, man, I can't wait for the day when I get to go see a movie for myself and experience this amazing place. And to this day, as a mid 20-year-old, I love the movie theater experience. You could take if you and I went out to see a movie, you didn't have to tell me which movie it was. As long as we're going to a movie theater, I am just happy to be
Yeah,
there.
I'm the same way.
And yeah, oh, 100%. And he got me excited about the concept of what it represented because it was like you're going into this dark room where it's almost like you're separate from the rest of the world. And there's so many times where we'd go into a movie theater and it was, light outside, and then we left and it was dark. And it was
Oh,
almost
dude,
like,
that's like the
oh
best
my gosh.
feeling.
Yeah. And it's like I just stepped into a time capsule. And
Yeah.
that alone was what really got me excited about the idea of movies. So it wasn't movies specifically, but it was the experience that I totally bought in. And then I think first experience, this one's going to be kind of interesting. So I ironically grew up in a very conservative household, and so we didn't really watch a lot of movies. We consumed media, but not to the extent that I wish I did because I feel like I missed out on so much. I don't know if you're going to know this movie, but we saw Facing the Giants in theaters, and that was the first ever movie I ever saw in theaters.
That sounds very
It's
familiar, but
about
I
football. I don't know if that rings the
Oh,
bell.
okay. I
But it was
think I might have watched that in school once. I feel like that's a movie they put on in school.
Yeah, so it's made by Sherwood Pictures, and I think it came out around 2005, and that was the first movie theater movie that I had went to, and the only thing I can remember from that is that we couldn't find a seat, and so we had to sit in the very front row, and I was just looking like this the whole time, like, "Is this the movie theater experience?" And so,
That
I
sucks.
I was like, "This sucks."
You lied, Dad.
Why? But that's all I remember is just getting a crick in my neck at, 6 years old or something, or I think it was 7. But I still loved it. I just was like, is this really what we're doing? And so that was the first movie I ever saw, and that was definitely an experience to be sure. But I think the first movie that really stuck with me as a kid was the Robin Hood animated movie from Disney. That was one of the first. I
Oh.
had it on VHS. That was my pride and joy. And in our living room, we had the little tiny TV before the flat screens, before the 1080p's and all that stuff. And I would watch the Little Rascals movie. Or wow, Little Rascals. Wow,
Oh,
that
I
was
loved
that
Little
was after.
Rascals.
We'll get to that. Um, but no, the animated Robin Hood movie. I loved the roguish hero who stole from the rich and gave to the poor, but he had a pure heart. All that kind of stuff. Little John was my favorite character, and I watched that thing on repeat. And yes, the live action Little Rascals movie was also one of my favorites, but I also watched the original black and white kind of I think they were pretty much shorts because they were all like 15-minute segments. Loved the Little Rascals. So those were some of my biggest impressions as a younger child.
Wow, man, that's awesome. So, how old were you exactly when your father was talking to you about the movie theater?
I would say I was about 6 or 7. I think maybe about 6, because that was right around the time he actually went to go see Revenge of the Sith. And just to out myself, I'm
Ah,
25 years old, so that dates me. But he was going in to see it, and I couldn't go in with him because I was 6 years old, and so he's like,
yep.
"It's PG-13. I don't think you're able to see this." So I remember watching him go in there, and my father's was in the Navy, so it was like seeing him deploy on the ship where I was like, "Wow, he's going off into another world. Will I see him again?" And then he came back out 2 hours later, and he's like, "Man, let me tell you, movie theaters are awesome." And I'm like, "Then why can't I go in there?" He's like, "Not yet, not yet." So that was around the time.
So, what time? How old were you when he took you to your first movie? Then.
I was about 8, I think it was. So it was a couple years after that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
still old enough to know what was going on, but not old enough to see some of the big ticket movies that were out at that time.
Yeah, that's fair, man. I mean, I wasn't allowed to see Revenge of the Sith in theaters either, but like I remember because my dad would take me to the theater quite frequently, and then so did my grandparents. So I remember going to the theater and like I remember the cardboard cutouts of Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting with
Yes.
the lava
So
and
cool.
I like the big stands and I was
Yeah.
like, man, that looks awesome. But I was watching the original Star Wars trilogy at the time because that's like one of the first movies that I ever watched. But I
Mhm.
wasn't really watching the prequels yet. Like I remember when Phantom Menace came out, I remember like walking by like we had this like old kind of like corner store down from our house that had like
Mhm.
movie rentals and stuff. And I remember walking by Attack of the Clones, but I don't really remember when I watched the prequels for the first time. I remember the original trilogy like it was yesterday, but don't really
Mhm.
remember when I saw the prequels. So I don't even think I comprehended that it was necessarily Star Wars, but just like it looked so cool. But
Mhm.
my dad saw it and was like, "Well, this guy gets burned at the end, so
Same.
I
That
don't
was the
think you're gonna be okay."
that was the exact same reasoning, because I told my dad, I was like, "You let me watch the original trilogy, like, you let me watch The Phantom Menace, so what makes this any different?" I and he's just like, "There's some darker subjects in there, so we're gonna hold off a little bit." So I was 100% in the same boat.
Yeah, and I think I was more aware that it was Star Wars for Revenge of the Sith because the marketing had Darth Vader, and I recognized Darth Vader, so I think that clued me in more that that was Star Wars.
Mhm.
So yeah, so going on with your journey, when did you start to get into the filmmaking process of movies? When did that start to intrigue you? How did you view movies as a child? Like, were they just like images that were flashing? Were they people inside the screen like I thought they were? And yeah, when did that transition happen to where you're like, oh, there's like thousands of people that have to come together to put these things together?
So, to be honest, again, I have a little bit more of a unique perspective, but for the longest time, to me, I always just knew it was entertainment. Just pretty much the whole way through, even when I was younger. I didn't think there was people behind there. I knew Sesame Street was Sesame Street. It's not real, but it was something that I watched because it was fun to watch. Um, but going even to when I was in my preteens and My teenage years, I didn't really care as much about how things worked because to me, I was just as long as I'm getting entertained, it doesn't matter. Which to segue off of that, I really didn't care about the idea of how movies worked until I got way older. I'd say probably around 17 years old, maybe
Mm.
16, 17. Because up until then, it was just entertainment for me. It wasn't really a passion. I was heavily invested in music. I produced music, I wrote music, I created music. So for me, that was my life. And between that and some, football and basketball, there was no room for me to really pursue other things. And so for me, I was like, let's just keep that for what it is. It's entertainment. I'm just gonna, if there's something I want to watch to keep myself entertained, I'll do it. But I didn't really dive deep into it. But I will say, like growing up, all Star Wars, all Star Wars. I
Yeah.
studied the lore. I studied any book I could find. I had stacks of books I would borrow from my friends, and I analyzed everything. I memorized all. I think it was seven. No, it was eight forms of combat stances that Jedi and Sith do. And I wanted to know every single thing about Star Wars. Wasn't necessarily about how it was made because I loved watching the behind the scenes and stuff like that, but it was more so again to be entertained by what went on behind the scenes. And all of that stuff was just things that I enjoyed participating in, but it wasn't until I was about 17 where I was like, "You know what? I'm actually really interested in how this stuff works because all this stuff on the surface is literally as it is. It's the tip of the iceberg." And so that's when I started to deep dive and discover what was kind of behind the curtain.
So going back really quickly, why Star Wars? Why was that like such a big thing for you?
My dad, once again, he was a diehard Star Wars fan, and he 100% indoctrinated me into that world because he also surrounded himself with Star Wars fans. And so I remember this is probably now to go back to your earlier thing, but one of my earliest memories was him playing a computer game of Star Wars with his friends. And I didn't know what Star
Mm.
Wars was, but I pieced together that, wow, my dad enjoys it. So that must be something I'll enjoy. And lucky for him, I hook, line, and sinker all the way through because I fell in love with it. I loved the idea of being transported to a galaxy far, far away that has ideas and characters that I can relate to, but they're so separated from this world that it felt unique. And I mean, of course, as a young boy, lightsabers, action, blasters, Princess Leia. Can I get a let's go? Yes, sir. But
Princess Leia,
yeah,
Return of
so
the Jedi.
let's go. I always had to look left and right when that part came on because I was like, are mom and dad behind me?
Yeah, I know, right? It was always like, am I supposed to be watching this?
Exactly. But yeah, no, from from when I was a little kid to where I'm at right now, it's Star Wars has been the heartbeat of my entertainment career.
That's awesome, man. I love hearing that. So let's go back to 17 years old. You were wanting to get more invested into how, like, where did you go? Like, what were your sources for that? Like, where did you start looking into movies that way?
Yeah, for sure. My sources were mostly either behind the scenes, for certain movies I was watching and stuff like that, because I again was a little late to the curve. And so I was just getting caught up on Pirates of the Caribbean, Indiana Jones, Jaws, the kind of things that you hear people talk about all the time.
Yeah,
I was still getting caught up on because I felt like I had so much to binge. And
I was
I
in a similar boat there too. Yeah.
Where I wanted to get caught up. I was loving everything. I just didn't have enough time to do it. And people were like, "Have you seen this movie? Have you seen that movie?" I was like, "No, not yet, but I'm getting there." And I would watch the DVDs and look at the behind the scenes. I'd go on YouTube and I would look up stuff on YouTube. And that was pretty much my one main source of information was YouTube. Is I would look up behind the scenes for yada yada yada. If they had a documentary, I'd watch that. And that was my main source until I actually started getting into reading. I started reading certain screenplay books where they started talking about what to be looking for and how to frame a shot. I started watching random workshops back to YouTube. Random workshops of how to frame a shot, like Frank said. How to effectively use CGI, stuff like that. And I think once I started to pile those on, it gave me a little bit more of a well-rounded perspective, but it also activated a little bit of the cynical in me because then I started to actually start
Yeah.
to critique things where I was like, "Oh, all right, that wasn't great," or "That could have used some work," but it at least opened my mind to that world.
Wow, man, that's cool. So you got it all from Did you watch like other YouTubers that talked about movies at that time, or was that like foreign to you?
I did, but again, more so because I watched a lot of YouTubers that were entertaining. because again, it goes back to the whole entertainment. I watched YouTubers that could regurgitate a movie back to me in their own way and in their own words because I enjoyed hearing their perspective on it. And so for me, I started to realize, I think it was around 2016, where I was like, oh, wow, some of these guys actually know how to really deep dive into this. And so I really got into Sean Chandler. I got
Mm.
into Jeremy Johns, Chris Stuckman. And Chris Stuckman specifically really opened up my
Yeah,
mind on how movies
the
work.
OG.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think the way he broke down the intricacies of movie filming or movie making, that really got me really invested. And just like Frank, the MCU is what really kicked off my full blown tilt into insane fandom because I like we talked about before, the first Thor movie was the first MCU movie I saw, but Civil
Yeah.
War was the first movie I saw in theaters for the MCU. And I was so behind. I was like, okay, Black Panther's in there. That's cool. Spider-Man. Hey, I remember him from the Sam Raimi trilogy. But I was totally out of the loop for the MCU. I knew the characters from the comics because I had just started reading comics, but I never put two and two together. After Civil War, I said, "Hey, things are about to change right now." I went home, I binged everything I could get my hands on, and from then on out, I became a full-blown super fan. I Whenever I do things 100%. So I read double the comics, I watched double the movies, and I started moving into DC, played all the games, read all the comics, watched all the movies. And from about 2016 on, it was nothing but consuming product and just full blown falling into the the black abyss of fandom.
I love that, man. Like, just talking to you and Frank and myself, like, it's awesome to see how influential the MCU has been on guys like us. So, going to your YouTube journey now, as I was talking with Frank, like, we all know how hard it is to sit in front of that camera, hit record, watch it back, feel like you've got something decent that you can put out there, and then to upload it to the internet for all to see. Like, why did you do that? What made you decide that was a good idea?
So, Eternals. Eternals was the movie that inspired me to pick something up because before that, my wife and I have conversations all the time because she's just as much into this stuff as I do. She just doesn't necessarily she can't talk about it for hours, but she can 100% have it back and forth, and we've done that for years. But we went to go see Eternals, and I know I've talked with people like DJ and Jason Entertainment about this stuff, but I disliked it so much that I needed to talk about it, and nobody would listen. And I was like, I have to get something off my like this. I can't hold it in. And so my wife was like, just set up your phone, record a video, and see what happens. If you don't like it, trash it. And
Mhm.
so I recorded a video, 45 minutes. It's still on my phone. I listen to it sometimes when I want to feel angry because it was so bad. It was buns. And I did everything that you shouldn't do in a recording. And it irritated me to the point where I said, I'm never doing this again. Shut it off. I told my wife, I was like, yeah, it just wasn't for me. And then a couple months later, one of my friends approached me about doing a podcast talking about specifically the MCU and DC. And I was like, heck yeah, let's do it. So I reconverted my YouTube channel, which was a music channel that I used to put out my music that had about 150, 200 subscribers, rebranded it as the Cosmic Broadcast. And if you go back on my channel, the first couple episodes were with my partner. However, due to creative differences, we decided to split off. And I said, you know what? It's either live by the sword, die by the sword. I said, so I'm going to jump into this again and see if I can give it another go. My first solo video after that was my Obi-Wan Kenobi series mid-season review. Got 1,000 views first time I uploaded it. And I was like, you know what?
Oh,
I said, I
that's
think I'm going to try
dangerous.
this. Yeah, exactly. And I was like, I don't know if that's a good thing or that's a bad thing. I was like, so I'll give it my best shot. And then from then on out, I just said, I know I'm insecure. I know I hate the way I talk. I stutter. I have a lot of difficulties with organizing my thoughts because I talk fast and my brain goes faster, but I'm going to give it the best shot I got. And then I started to figure out my niche. I was like, my specialty is Marvel, Star Wars, DC, and a little bit of Sonic the Hedgehog stuff because I'm a lifelong Sonic fan. So I'm going to make my channel that. My branding is going to be that. When someone gets on my channel, that's what they're going to see. And from then on out, just kind of hit the ground running.
That's awesome, man. So how long have you been doing YouTube then?
I'd say about a year and a half off the top
Nice.
of my head. I think it was April of 2022 was when the first podcast episode came out, but that only lasted for, I think, 2 months. So about a year and a half.
Wow, man, that's awesome. Where does the name Cosmic Broadcast come from? How did you come up with that?
So the Cosmic Broadcast, again, broadcast is supposed to be similar to a podcast, and I wanted it to appeal to my specific demographic, or the covering of nerdy sci-fi comic book movie type. And so whenever I said cosmic, people were like, "Oh, like superhero stuff." And so I used that as my little segue, where I forgot some of the names that we workshopped. None of it made sense. And I was talking to a couple people and saying, "Hey, if I say the cosmic broadcast, what would you be?" They're like, "Either you talk about the stars or you talk about like sci-fi stuff." And I said, "Okay, you know what? I can live with that." And I think I'm never against potential rebranding in the future to officially try to take the next step. But while I kind of dig in where I'm at right now and kind of get the ball rolling, that's what I settled on.
Perfect, man. That's awesome. So
Yeah,
before we bring on Ken from See for Yourself, like Jonah, or not, you're Jonah,
I am Jonah. I am me.
like
Me,
Frank.
me is
Sorry,
him.
like Frank. I wanted to throw this question at you. What was the first movie that you can remember that made you realize that movies could be bad?
Two pronged. First one, 2016 Suicide Squad. That was the first movie I walked into and walked out of, and I was like, I didn't like that. Because before that, I was consuming the best. Dark Knight. We're talking Man of Steel, Captain America. I was doing all the good stuff, and I was like, this is fun. And then I was like, ooh, a Suicide Squad movie. I don't know too much about the Suicide Squad, but I'm in there like swimwear. And I got there and walked out, and I was like,
like
this
like
is
swimwear.
it's like
That's amazing.
this is crap. I don't like this. And I turned to my friend. I was like, did you enjoy that? He's like, no. I said, okay, cool. I think that might have been like the first bad movie that I went to go see. The movie that made me actively realize, wow, there could potentially be a huge problem for the future is The Last Jedi. Because I walked into that with such high expectations. Because contrary to popular belief, as much as I dislike the sequels, I thought The Force Awakens was actually good, and they
Yep.
played it safe, but in a good way. And I walked in fully on the hype train. That was the first movie where I walked out of angry, genuinely, passionately angry, because I was like, they took everything that is Star Wars and just took a big fat dump on the table and said, "Here you go, bon appetit." And so those were two pronged, but those were the two movies that really just really did not sit well with me.
Wow, man, that's awesome. I mean, I was not angry when I left The Last Jedi, but I was very confused about how I felt about it. And then as time went on, I was like, yeah, it ain't great. There's some great stuff in it, I think, but for the most part, yeah, it's not that
There's some
great.
great ideas, and Ryan Johnson had a vision, and I respect him for it. But for what Star Wars needed at the time, I don't think it was a good fit. But
Yeah,
again, 100% not gonna badmouth it here because it's all positivity.
totally fair, man. Well, that was a lot of fun, man. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for talking about this with me. And let's one last time, where can the people find you?
Absolutely. Well, you can find me at the Cosmic Broadcast on YouTube. You can find me at the Cosmic Broadcast on TikTok. You can find me on Instagram with the same name, and then on Twitter you can find me at Broadcast Cosmic. I'm working on a Star Wars video coming out soon where I'm reading everyone's comments and reacting to them, hot takes, yes or no, and that's where you can find me. Hope to see you guys there.
That's gonna be a fun video, man. Well, once again, dude, thanks for joining me. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right, Zach, be safe, man.
You too. All right, and let's do it. Let's bring on Ken here. What's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going?
Doing well, man. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Doing all right. Working off of, some steam. I'm working on fumes right now because I was editing all night, but I'm good to
Oh
go.
wow, man. One of
Yeah.
those nights, huh? I was
Yeah.
doing some editing last night too. I'm working on my Blu-ray collection video for this year, and
Nice.
I had some hiccups with the dog barking and stuff, so I'm doing some editing on that as
Dude,
well.
dogs don't care about your videos. They
They
just
really
they
don't,
do
no
they
matter how
want
much you
to
plead.
play.
Well, dude, I'm
Yeah.
excited to have you here to talk about this, dude. I love hearing everyone's stories, everyone's journeys through
Yeah.
this thing, and I'm excited to hear your story, man. So let's go back to the beginning. First movie experience, first exposure. Who got you into movies? What started this whole thing for you?
Sure. So I would say like it's a community of people because it all kind of happened around the same time. So I would say my parents for sure. They introduced me to the Disney movies and things of that nature. And then my grandmother, she actually ran a daycare. So I would always go to my grandmother's daycare every day, and Lion King would be on literally every day. But it's my favorite movie, so that's not a problem for me. It's still my favorite movie to this day. If I throw on Lion King, I know it front to back, word for word. But also I would also say like my dad, my mom and my dad were divorced, so I would go to his house on the weekends and stuff like that, and I would just rummage through his VHSs, and it was the opposite of Disney. So there, I saw Forrest Gump, I saw Speed, and all of those came out in '94. So it's actually really funny that all of my favorite movies came, and those are my three favorite movies. All those came out like the same year. So it's really like every different kind of touch point of cinema I actually got at a very young age because I was 4 when The Lion King came out, right? So I was born in 1990. So I got drama, I got action, and I got animation and cartoons and stuff like that. So that's why I had such a varied experience. And to just like round it off, I don't know if because I know that you're a bit younger than me, but I don't know if you still had Saturday morning cartoons. But after
Yep.
Saturday morning cartoons went off, on we had UPN and we had Fox and Kids WB. After those cartoons went off, those same channels would play the wildest movies you could imagine, like directly afterwards. So of course there was like Ernest Goes to Jail. It's fine, it's safe. But then on UPN there was Leprechaun in the Hood and Nightmare on Elm Street and RoboCop was on Channel 48 for some reason. And so I was exposed to a lot of different movies that I should not have been seeing at 5, 6, 7, and 8. And also, when earlier Species was mentioned, I was like, oh my God, Species, because I actually saw Species 2 at around 7 or 8. And let me tell you, we have no business watching that movie. It's literally sex scene after sex scene after sex scene of an alien trying to. Yeah, so he already explained. I won't explain it anymore. But yeah, so I ran the gamut of movies as a young person before even like turning 10 years old. I had seen pretty much everything you could see in
Wow,
terms of
man.
like genre and what have you.
That's awesome. Yeah, 94 was a good year too for movies.
It
Like
was.
just a
It was a
lot of
great
good
year.
stuff that came out there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you sounds like you had a lot of movies at your disposal, just
Yep.
anything at your fingertips. And what like at that age, what were you thinking about movies? Like did you get the concept that they were made by thousands of people coming together or hundreds of people coming together and or like
Mhm.
were they people in the screen to you? Like what was it about movies at that age that really captivated you?
So I never got the idea that those fictional characters were real. I never, I don't want to say struggle with that, but I never like kind of went through that illusion. For me, I knew that these people were actors and what have you. I don't know like how I kind of like picked that up, but also my parents never told me that like Santa Claus was real or the Easter Bunny was real. So I never
Mhm.
went through this phase of these people are doing things. I grew up where, oh no, if something happened in the house, like positively, my mom or my dad did that. So I think I had a real world sense of like people are doing things. You know what I mean? So and with movies in particular, I just love stories. Like stories from any kind of genre or any kind of medium. Stories are great. You can just sit there and watch it and watch these things play out. And even like the first time you see it, it's a mystery about how things are going to go down. I didn't understand like tropes and stuff like that. Like I can
Mhm.
kind of guess the direction a movie might go in these days, but when I was a kid, everything was like, I have no idea how this is going to go. Like for example, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I saw that as a very young child. Probably shouldn't have. But yeah, I did not see spoilers for Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I did not see the judge turning out to be a tune. Like that was crazy to me. Like it's
It's freaky
like
too.
so
It's
many things I
scary.
saw as yeah, yeah. And the dip, and you put the
Yep.
shoe in the dip, insane. So because of that, like my tolerance for things was pretty ironclad. Like except for one time, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure. But yeah,
We definitely will
for sure.
now.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, now, so basically, my dad took me to go see. This is my first. This is the only theater experience from when I was a youngling that I actually remember. We went to go see Starship Troopers. And I think that came out in 97, 98. So I had to been 7 or 8. Being born in 90 was so helpful because I could just add the numbers. So in the first 5 minutes, one of the giant like bugs like rips open some guy's leg, and I was done. Like tears were flowing. I was crying so hard. I could not believe what my dad was subjecting me to. So he took me out of the theater, thankfully, like within like the first 10 minutes. He's like, "Oh no, this is not going to work." And then I saw it again a year later and I loved it. It's crazy. But
That's so interesting. Was that before or after like Nightmare on Elm Street and RoboCop and all that was playing on TV?
I think like all that was like during the same time. So when I was so like because Saturday morning cartoons for me were Spider-Man, X-Men the animated series, and like stuff like that. So right after that stuff went off, the most insane things imaginable came directly on the screen. So all that stuff was around the same time. So I think like I said 97, 98 was Starship Troopers. So that's kind of, I was seeing it at 7 or 8 and had no business seeing most of the things I saw.
That's hilarious, man. So as you're getting older, and I mean, you got exposed to like a lot of classics, a lot of like mainstream, just like popular movies at a very young age. Like we were talking about with like Jonah, like and myself too. Like we kind of had to get a lot older before we saw a lot of like the Indiana Jones and Jaws and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So how did that affect the rest of your movie going experience as you got into like your teenage years and stuff like that? Did you have a big group of friends or friends that you talked about movies with? Were movies a big thing for you at that time? Did they come back around at some point? Like what was the rest of your journey with that?
Yeah, so I was really blessed because my best friend Steve, who lived directly across the street, I mean, I could throw a football into his window from my house. He lived directly across the street from me. I used to go over to his house almost every day after school, and we would watch movies. And his entire family were just a bunch of cinephiles. Like they loved movies. They talked about movies in the way that I talk about movies now, and they really taught me a lot about the way I look at movies. So everything from facial expressions, what you do with your eyes, a beat that you may take, like your tone of voice, like just different choices that actors make within movies, and even different choices that directors make. So these things, and they were like way older than us. They were like in their late teens, early 20s when we were like, I want to say 11, 10, 11 and stuff like that. So I'm learning all this stuff from them just about how to like look at movies and stuff like that. And we're making skits too. So we take one of his older brothers, like camcorder, and everybody's in on it too. And we're just like making skits and acting and all this other stuff. So I had a really great experience as a youth and as a young person, just being around movies and stuff like that. So I wanted to be an actor actually when I was younger. I actually wanted to be a stunt double first because I love Jackie Chan movies, and I tried to perfect that by literally willingly running into traffic and like trying to dodge cars with one of my other friends. We wanted to be stuntmen. It was not smart. I'm so happy we survived. But
Sounds like it.
Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of my experience, man. I learned so much from them just about how to even like look at movies from watching them talk and talking with them about it.
Wow, man, that's awesome. So you did like a number of short films and stuff with them when you were younger.
Oh yeah, like 5 to 6 minute skits. It was all creative stuff. We were all poor, so it was kind of like, literally shoestring budget kind of stuff we could find around the house, using brooms as props and all kinds of stuff. So our imagination was not lacking at all. So
Nice.
Yeah, it was great.
So before or when you were making those, did you have concept of like filmmaking behind the scenes type information, or
No,
did you guys just go out and shoot the stuff?
I knew nothing. They all had the knowledge about shots and like different things that they want to do because they were doing this way before I came around, right?
Cool.
So they had already had like cassette tape after cassette tape of skits, like way like I said, way before I came around. So I just like kind of joined in and kind of learned from them as well. So
and that was like your film school.
I had no concept of that. Yeah, basically, it was basically my film school. Yep.
Wow, man, that's so cool. So you mentioned you wanted to be an actor. Like, I had the same kind of desire when I was younger too. Acting was
Hmm.
always the most appealing part. Did you ever have any like desire to get into the industry then? Do you still have that desire to do something in the industry?
No, that is past what I want to do. I don't have any desire to do that now. Like I said, I did want to do that. Even like going into college, I wanted to do it. But I decided against it. My mom was like, "Oh, you'll never make money doing that. Blah blah blah. You should get
Mm,
something that is more sustainable." And I was like, "All right, I guess I'll listen to her." And then I did, and then I never actually like went to go like pursue it. So, and I'm okay with that. I'm actually like
yeah.
content with that now. But yeah, so that was kind of like the end of like the acting thing. Yeah.
Cool. So, I mean, what happened to the point where you decided that I'm going to sit in front of a camera and talk about movies and put it on the internet for all to see? What was your journey to your YouTube channel, and why movies? Why is that what you chose?
Sure. So I'll answer the second question first.
Sure.
I love movies. There's nothing I would rather do than to be in a movie theater or to be watching a movie. Like this for me is at times more than sports for me. Like movies and stories and things of that nature are they're like the lifeblood of my life. Like I love just watching a good movie or even watching a bad movie. No matter what the experience is, I want to go through that journey. And why the reason why I decided to like make a YouTube channel was I had joined the podcast, similar to what Jonah had said. But the podcast is called the Blurred Bar, and essentially each one of us has a different focus. One of us is video games, and another person's anime, and another person's comic books, and they wanted to bring you on as the movie person, right? So and that's because I would just tweet. I wouldn't even make videos. I would just tweet about like a movie I saw, like two or three sentences or something like that. And I've been doing that for a while with no intention of making a YouTube video or YouTube channel. But when they asked me to join the podcast, the idea I came up with is the way to attract people to the podcast is for all of us to make content that's specific to our niche, right? So I
Mhm.
was like, oh, you know what? I'll make movie reviews this time on camera for the YouTube channel for the podcast. But then I had decided that I should just make my own thing because just from wisdom, from a business sense, if I put the time, effort, and just skill into making these things, they need to belong to me, right? I'll still
Mhm.
use it to promote that podcast and what have you, but anything I spend my time on that no one else is a part of necessarily, I at the end of the day need to have full control over that. So I didn't want to put a bunch of stuff on the YouTube channel for me to like break away from the podcast at some point, which may or may not happen. I'm not predicting that. We're doing our podcast this year. But
Nice.
it was just smart for me to do. So the mandate was to make one video a week. And that quickly changed for me because once made my first video, I just started making video after video after video. And I started this back in, I want to say May 10th of this year is when I started my
Nice.
YouTube channel. And I think I have 196 videos up right now. So that's
That's
been
impressive.
kind of like the path for me because I love this so much. So yeah.
That's awesome, dude. I love that. I mean, you've had such a really cool, unique experience growing up with movies and making movies with your friends, and that's just so
Yeah.
fun. That's awesome. So, before we bring in dark movies here, usually we'd be out of time at this point, but I really want to get dark movies on here.
Okay.
The last question I'll ask you, as I did with everyone else, what was the first movie that made you realize that movies could be bad?
I was very young, but I had seen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1 and 2 Secret of the Ooze. And then I thought, yo, I'll just watch 3. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 is one of the worst movies I have ever seen in my entire life. I don't even know why or how it was made because the turtles look completely different in the
Yeah,
third one from the
their
second one.
budget got cut.
And they went back in time to feudal Japan, which is kind of cool in concept, but it was such a weird like experience, and it's not a good movie. So as a very young person, like just that was, and it's funny that kind of started me on the third movie is always the worst kind of theory because that has been consistent throughout film history. Typically,
Yeah.
there's some differences. There's some like blips in the radar, but for the most part, the third movie in the trilogy is usually the worst one. So yeah,
that's what I grew up hearing too. Is like the sequels always suck, and I
yeah,
feel like that's kind of gone away nowadays. But growing up, I heard
hmm
that a lot. So,
yeah.
man, I appreciate you being here, man. I appreciate you jumping on, talking with me. I had a blast talking with you. And please, once
Likewise.
again, tell where they can find you.
Cool. So yeah, my name is Ken Sparks. I run a YouTube channel called See for Yourself. You can find me at that name. The See for Yourself channel just put out, or I just put out, I guess, the State of the Franchise MCU, which is a video just detailing where the MCU is in terms of fans' minds and my mind, and what I think that they need to do in order to improve the MCU going forward. Thank you so much, Zach, for having me on, and I'll see you next time.
Absolutely, man. And I just want to highlight this real quick because this is really sweet of DJ to say. Two of my favorite people on camera at
That's
the
my
same
guy.
time. DJ, you're the best, man. You
DJ.
rock.
Love
All
that
right,
guy.
man.
Yeah,
Have a
man.
great weekend. We'll see you again
All right,
soon.
man. Have a good one.
And last but certainly not least, we've got Dark Movies in here. What's
Hey,
going on,
up?
man?
What's up? I'm doing pretty good myself. What about you?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for being here, man. I appreciate you being here, waiting around, and I'm excited to talk to you, man. I'm excited to get into this. So let's just waste no time. Like, let's get into it. What was the first movie experience that you ever can remember having? What got you into movies? Who got you into movies?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay. So my biggest credit is to my mom. Like, she's the one that just got me into horror, like horror, especially when I was 12, 11. But like earlier, yeah, just my mom just 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 oh my god, I can't speak. Just introduced me to movies, and probably just animated movies first though, and then later Avengers and stuff like that, Marvel, MCU, like Jonah and stuff like that, and of course horror now that developed into slasher films like Saw. Saw is the good. That's, yeah, I don't know why I watched that when I was young, but yeah. Yeah.
So, do you remember the first horror movie your mom ever showed you?
Horror. Oh, it has to be The Conjuring. The Conjuring
Yeah.
one, definitely 100%. Like
That's
we
an
were,
intense one to start with.
yeah, yeah. It is. I wasn't like scared at all. Like, yeah, I wasn't. I was just chilling there, like just watching it, and I was just having so much fun. Just like when you just jump scared, that adrenaline rush, like you get like insane. I was just, it was just amazing.
Yeah, is that what you love about horror movies? Is
Oh
that
yeah,
that adrenaline rush when you get
yeah,
scared?
yeah, or kills. So kills, yeah, the bloody kills. You know.
Yeah.
And
You
I
love
can't
the
stay
bloody
away
kills.
from that. I can't stay away from that. No.
That's awesome, man. So, would you say that horror is like your favorite genre?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah?
That's like top, and then probably like action or something like that.
Nice. So, growing up, you said that you started with animated first. Do you
Yeah.
remember what like some of the first animated movies you ever saw were?
I definitely remember watching Zootopia in theaters. That was that was honestly really good.
For reference, how old were you when you saw Zootopia?
When did it come out? 16.
2016. Yep.
I'm definitely not counting right now. Probably 10.
10
9,
years old.
10,
Okay.
10, around that. Zootopia is fantastic, absolutely. And then I watched like The Secret Life of Pets. That's someone I really really love. And I think the first animated one of the first one was The Good Dinosaur. I remember my brother having a birthday party, and we watched in like the theaters, hosting a birthday party in theaters. So I got to watch that animated with a lot of his friends, and just it was just a blast, honestly.
That's awesome, man. So you're still, I mean, we're all kind of young here, but you're like the youngest for sure.
Oh yeah.
So you're still kind of like going on your movie journey and discovering movies and so far on this journey, like what has really captivated you about movies? What draws you to them?
Honestly, just the story, just the story, honestly, and the performances. I always knew. Just to answer another question, I always knew like it wasn't it was actors and stuff like that. I always knew that, but I didn't like really care about it, I
Mm.
guess. But I just really like the story and honestly just conclusion of everything. Like when you set up a movie and then there's just like at the end, like everything comes together and like you figure out, oh, that's what I. Oh my god! Okay, I missed that. Like I just really love that.
Yeah, that's kind of like a rush for you as well as getting that
Yeah, yeah,
satisfaction. That's all. Do you
yeah.
remember the first movie that kind of made you feel like that? Like have that, oh, I get it at the end?
God. Honestly, no, I don't
No,
remember.
that's fair, man.
Not really.
Hey,
But
lots of movies out there.
yeah, yeah. The most recent one I think I've like very just like oh my god, like that was the Insidious the chapter 2 that I watched for the first time a long time, a few months ago. Yeah, long time ago.
Yeah,
Few
long
months
time
ago.
ago.
Few months ago, but long time.
Nice. So, do you have
So
like a community of friends that you talk about movies with a lot, or like what is the fun for you of talking about movies?
fun. Okay. So to answer like that, friends, not really. They. I mean, they watch movies, but like not as much as me. So I was just sitting there, kind of as outcast, honestly, in it, almost. But like we were very into gaming, though. Of course, gaming. Just we're just gaming and gaming all day. But I think the most that I talked about movies were to my mom. We just talked to movies like just long conversation about movies, and I don't know what's like the fun of it. I, I just have so much fun. I just get joy just talking about something I love.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, that's really sweet that it's kind of been like your bonding with your mom. That's kind of what has that's like the it sounds like it's almost like the foundation of you guys' like relationship almost is
Actually, true.
movies and your
Yeah,
shared
yeah,
love for
yeah,
movies and stuff. So
yeah.
that's
True.
really awesome and I can see why that would then become this joy for you of just loving talking about movies. But I want to hear the story of I mean why YouTube? Like what brought you to coming to your camera, hitting record, and putting a video on the internet? Like what was the process for you leading up to that? How were you feeling about it? And were you scared? Were you nervous to do it? Were you excited to do it? Like how was that whole thing for you?
So I'm going to share something that many of you don't even know. I've started YouTube since I was in 2018, but I was not making YouTube videos. I was streaming, just streaming like 2 to 6 hours a day, all day, every single
6
day.
hours a day?
Sometimes 6 hours, 6 hours, yes.
What were you
And I was
streaming?
Fortnite.
Fortnite? Nice.
Yeah, yes. So I remember using my like my 6 hours of my iPad to film the TV that I had. It was so bad, but it's so funny to like look back now. I deleted everything, but
Oh
yeah,
no.
but still remember everything. And by the point I got like a computer, I was streaming, of course, that, but around, let me check, hold up. Yeah, March 2021, I posted my first ever video. That was a montage as Fortnite montage. So I was just doing that. Like, actually, I was posting like once a month on that. Yeah, once a month, and then I took an 8 month break, and then randomly switches to Roblox. Yeah, Roblox. So, and then of course, um, and YouTube and movies, I was thinking about like I was thinking about it since like January this year. I was like really thinking, should I start it? Should I not? Like, I was like both nervous and excited. So like I wasn't scared about like putting my face out there because I had face cam on my streams.
Mm.
So that was like all right. But like, what if they don't like me or like? So as some of you know, I was like depression stuff. I don't care. Like I don't go back to that right now. But I was like scared if they don't like me and stuff. And I just said like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So about April 22nd this year, I posted my first ever review that it was Super Mario Bros. This movie, the animated movie from this year, and I got 400 views at the start. I was like 400 reviews by 2 days. I was like, what? People actually like
Dangerous.
me? And people actually like me? No way. So about like some days later, I posted my John Wick, and that just developed, and now I'm just learning throughout the whole YouTube experience. And something I didn't mention, I was watching 3C films. That was just he was the goat. Honestly, he was the one that made me like, yeah, that like he just it puts my thoughts into words. He just like
Yeah.
just that's true. Wait, no, not let me just change my opinion. That's actually true.
Yeah, no,
So
that's kind of what I had with like Chris
yeah.
Stuckman and Jeremy Johns and stuff when I first
Mm,
discovered them back in the day. Because it's not so much that they even like change your opinion that like you're like, oh, I need to agree with them, but like the way that they articulated and the way that they were able to say the things that I couldn't necessarily express but was
yes,
feeling,
yes.
they helped me to kind of define like, yes, I do agree with that. That is my opinion, or like, oh,
Yeah.
I never really looked at it that way, but that is how I'm feeling about this. You're right. I don't like this. Like, so that was 3C
Yeah.
films for you, huh?
Yeah, 3C Films. Just I think I've watched every video of his now. So I just really found his like charm and everything just funny. And about like Sean Chandler, like Chris Druckmann and stuff like that, I actually did not know about it around. I think I discovered it around May of this year. That's probably like around there I discovered them. Like I had no idea who that is, but 3C Films was my main guy.
Yeah,
And
that's
if I ever
awesome.
meet him, I'm going to do some anime beg, just like
Bow down to his feet.
yes, yes.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I discovered 3C films during the Spider-Man No Way Home era when
Mm,
he was putting out like he was the go-to guy for me for like all the Spider-Man No Way Home information because he was
yes.
just constantly every day putting out something,
Yep,
and
yep.
his skits, his little green screen skits at the beginning of the videos were just like gold. Like I love
Maybe
them.
that's kind of why I started doing that myself, just kind of pushing it a
Yeah,
little bit
I've
like that.
I've seen those. I like your Meg too. Your Meg 2 review
That one.
when you did the skit at the beginning.
Just check it.
I thought that was pretty good, man. That was pretty funny. So, do you
Yeah.
have like anything do you do any acting at school? Like do you have like a drama class that you're like because you
I
seem
don't
to like acting. Like that seems to be something that you kind of gravitate towards with your skits and everything.
Look, I'm not at all. I remember like there was like choice of whatever you want in the middle school, and for ninth grade I chose drama, and I hated it. I hated
Yeah.
it. I just no. I just almost did. I just almost wanted to fail the whole school. Just like I know. And with those skits, I just I'm not in. I just put myself out there. I don't care what people think now. Like just, just, just F it. Like F it. Just do that. Like it's just fun. And I mean, like the only thing that in the industry that I really want to go now is probably film school. I just really want to go
Yeah.
to film school now. So yeah, that's like a journey. I guess I'm in high school, so that's pretty far away. But yeah.
It's not as far away as you might think, man. Thank you
That
for
is
someone
true.
who's
That is true.
graduated.
That is
Yeah.
true.
I've
True,
been
true.
graduated now for like 7 years, and I cannot believe it's been that long. Like I feel like I
7
was in
years.
high school yesterday. It's crazy. But so film school, what would you want to like if you were going to get into the industry with film school? What is your desire to do? What do you want to do in the industry?
The most of the things I really liked is to direct
Yeah.
movies. Just be the next Christopher Nolan. Just I'm going to make Oppenheimer. Just and probably writing. Most of writing is somewhat fun, not the best, but whenever like I in the skits I control whatever they say. Like my mom, she uses like camera. She has no idea how, but I just try so the best I can to explain to her, and it's just honestly it's so fun just directing her. Just like directing people. Honestly, I don't know
Oh
why, but
man,
yeah.
that's awesome. I just want to highlight some encouragements that people are giving you in the chat, man. We got Jonah in here saying that he always looks forward to your skits.
Thank you, thank
And
you.
we have DJ in here saying, "Good for you, Dark. Don't worry about what people think. Those intros with you acting make you unique and an incredible creator. Keep up the great
Yes,
work. You, sir, are awesome." I love to see that, man. I love to see all the encouragement, all the support. It's
thank you,
beautiful, and yeah, that's amazing, man. So before we
thank you.
go, I do want to ask you the question I've been asking everyone before we go. What was the first movie you watched that made you realize that movies could be bad?
Ooh. So, as a topic like 3C films, I think that is a guy like who changed my opinion. I think I changed my opinion. I don't know why. I just like, you know what? I actually agree with it. He just pushed that other one. And if I remember, it's either any of the new Star Wars films that the like Force Awakens, Last Jedi and stuff, or the animated movie like Storks, yeah, Storks, whatever that is, whatever this is. Like I have
Storks, yeah.
no, yep, I have no idea. I can't even remember it, but I think that if I remember, it was pretty bad. It was really bad
Well,
for
that was
me.
around the same time as like Zootopia and stuff too, I
Yeah,
think, when that came
yeah.
out. Yeah, so that's pretty awesome. That's really funny. Well, dude, I appreciate you being here today. I appreciate you
Hey,
jumping on
it's
talking. I
fun.
loved hearing your story. I mean, you're still in the middle of your story. There's so much more to go, man. And I wish you all the best and film school and
Yeah, thank you.
everything. Like, yes, you will be the next Christopher Nolan, dude. I can't wait. But tell people where they can find you for now, and then we'll call it a day.
Hey, I'm Dark Movies, and I'm on X, YouTube, and Instagram, TikTok sometimes, Letterbox, and I'm currently editing and writing the script of my biggest project yet. I'm super excited for you guys to see it, and honestly, yeah, thanks for having me on this show again.
Absolutely, man. Had a pleasure talking with you. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon.
You too, man.
All right. Take care, man. Well, that was a lot of fun. Thank you to all the members that were here today. Thank you for sharing your stories, jumping on talk with me. Now the question goes to you guys. Why do you love movies? What got you into movies? What's your experience with movies? And if you have a YouTube channel, why did you decide to jump on camera and put yourself on the internet talking about movies? Comment down below and let us know all your thoughts and opinions, guys.